Hi everyone, welcome back to Storytime Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the film from 2013, We Are What We Are. Without any further, let's get started. The film opens with a haunting vision of a town's stunning surroundings, which are made better by the falling rain. Then, a remote house with a white structure comes into view. Inside the home, a woman is gazing out the screen door when she quickly takes her car keys and walks out. Taking a trip to the nearby butchery, she gives a brown paper bag to the cashier, who asks her if she's okay because she appears uneasy. After gathering her goods, the woman starts to walk to her car but pauses upon seeing a women's missing person flyer. Abruptly, the woman's mouth starts to bleed, causing her to choke and fall, smacking her skull on a steel pole and drowning in a ditch full of water. Returning to the White House, Iris and her sisters rose and gave their younger brother Rory a glass of milk, explaining that they were not allowed to offer him any food during their fasting period. As they hear a police car pull up to their home, the two kids run outside to where their father is talking to the policeman. And following their brief conversation, their father Frank receives the heartbreaking news that his wife has passed away. His daughters then assist him in return to the house. Frank, to overcome with grief, sends his two children to see Dr. Bauer so that they might identify their mother's corpse. When he tells them that just one of them needs to do it, Iris, the older sister, takes the initiative and follows the doctor to a different room. Dr. Bauer learns during the autopsy that their mother experienced early symptoms of Parkinson's disease.
Atrophy.
After they go home, Rose questions her father about their sacred ritual, to which he replies that they will carry on without interruption. Looking at Iris, he informs them that it is her duty as the eldest daughter to stick with their tradition. In a flashback, Frank is shown traveling on an empty road when he spots a young woman being driven by a broken-down car and kidnaps her. The next day, two anxious parents are sitting in front of the sheriff in the town's police station, telling him that they haven't heard from their daughter, who went missing the night before.
Friend's house. Just as worried.
Bringing up the storm, Sheriff Meeks tries to explain to them that it was rather usual for someone to be unable to contact someone because of the absence of phone service, but chooses to send out flyers and a missing persons report in an effort to console the parents. While strolling through the town with his dog, Dr. Bauer is taken aback when the dog discovers a bone along the creek. After going home, the doctor phones the sheriff and leaves a message, telling him that he has discovered something unusual and requesting that he give him a call as soon as possible. Back at Parker's house, Frank is chatting with Marge, their neighbor next door, and he thanks her for coming to his aid the night before when he broke down.
So soon?
Giving her an ornament, he expresses his gratitude and asks her to keep an eye on his little kid while he and his daughters attend his wife's burial. He doesn't want the child to witness the events. While talking about the upcoming ritual in the back of the home, Iris tries to reassure Rose that she is now responsible for it. Rose recommends that they refuse to comply with their father's request, but Iris says she only wants to finish it so they can plan for the upcoming year. While Rory is playing around the shed at the back of the house, he hears something coming from inside. He enters the room carefully and opens the door his father had forbade him from opening. To his surprise, he hears a woman sobbing behind a locked door and cries out for aid. Startled, he dashes outside and meets his father, who scolds him, informing him he wasn't supposed to be there. Once his kid is calmed down, Frank picks Rory up and brings him outside. Once the family has returned home from the funeral, Frank clumsily exits the vehicle and hands Iris an old journal that has been wrapped in white fabric. That evening, Iris is reading the old journal and Rose braiding Iris' hair. Suddenly a knock is heard on the front door and Iris goes to answer it, surprised to see Deputy Anders. After saying his condolences, Anders shows her a picture of a missing person they knew from school and asks her if she has seen her around. When he mentions that she hasn't seen the girl, Iris advises him to ask the residents of the trailer park across the street. Anders awkwardly asks Iris out on a date right before she leaves, but she declines, advising him to try again another day. Within her room reading the ancient journal again, Rose finds a passage describing the family who originally came to the area written from the daughter's point of view. They are unable to obtain any food during a harsh winter, so her father and uncle had to go search for food. Days later, her father brought fresh meat back to the family and said his brother had found more food. But she knew that was a lie because they were eating his flesh.
Says all is forgiven in the eyes of the...
After she had a conversation with Anders, Iris goes to talk to her father about ending their customs. Telling her it was God's will, she begged him to allow them to live regular lives. Frank tells his daughter that there is just one day left before the ceremony and exhorts her to be strong. In the meantime, Dr. Bauer visits Sheriff Meek at his home and displays the bone, telling him he thinks it is human, figuring the elderly man was just being crazy because his daughter had disappeared recently.
I'm probably clutching it.
Meek urges Bauer to take a vacation and begs him to stop questioning himself. The next day, unable to let go, Bauer gets in touch with Anders and shows him what he has discovered. Although Anders thinks the elderly man is playing games, he notices that Bauer is upset and invites him to visit so he can show him where he discovered the bone.
I'll tell you what, Doc.
Back at the Parker home, Iris and Rose run to their neighbor Marge for assistance because they are concerned about their younger brother. When she visits him to see how he's doing, she tells them the boy should be fine. He just has a slight temperature. As Frank is escorting her outside, Marge advises that they take the child to the hospital, but Frank dismisses her suggestion, saying that they don't have the money and that the boy should be okay. As soon as he closes the door, Frank collapses on the chair beside him and tells Iris that it's time. The scene changes, and we are taken to centuries back as the girl from the journal narrates the story of the beginning of their strange ritual. They received their first supply of meat from their father, and then he went insane, hiding in the caverns and decoding scripture. Following their mother's death, their father confesses to feeding them human flesh. His eldest daughter is tasked with ensuring their life by having their mother carved up so they can consume her. Upon receiving the reports, Bauer, Anders, and more law enforcement officials proceed to the overflowing creek, where they are startled to discover the lifeless body of the previously reported missing girl. The police were afraid to break the news to the girl's parents. Returning to the Parker home, Iris leads Rose to the basement where the ceremony is to be carried out. Open the locked door, they find the girl their father had kidnapped in chains and pull her out. Despite not wanting to do it, Iris takes command and strikes the girl in the head. After the woman passes away, Iris and Rose clean her up and start carefully carving her up in accordance with the directions in the book. After finishing the duty, the girls were frightened by the custom that was imposed upon them and were shaken by what they had to perform. Despite their father's insistence, the two sisters resolved never to carry out the ceremony again. The woman was cooked, then cut into a stew, and served to the family for supper. Rose struggles to eat the food since she is reminded of what they had done to the woman, but Frank makes her.
It's just hot.
The next morning, Rose wakes Iris from her sleep quickly and shows her where Anders is looking along the creek. When Iris sees his damp shoes and hopes to divert his attention from his quest, she summons him inside and offers to give him her father's extra sauce. She wonders what he is looking for, and he tells her that some bones have washed down the street by the water, and the doctor believes they might be human. Iris is alarmed by the news, thinking that their secret may be exposed. She tells Anders that there is an old cemetery nearby and that the bones may belong to their ancestors.
You have to creak a bit.
Enticed by the finding of further tiny bones and tissue, Dr. Bauer conducts additional investigation and discovers he has made an incorrect diagnosis on Iris's mother, discovering she suffered from Kuru sickness, a cannibalism-related illness. In the forest, after Anders admits his affections for Iris, the two start kissing passionately and making love. When Frank emerges out of nowhere, he gives Anders a shovel to the head and tells his daughter to go back home. Frank burns Anders' clothes and buries his body. Iris is devastated about what happened, sobbing in her sister's arms as she comforts her. Frank, enraged by his daughters, walks outside and starts cutting at a fallen tree while screaming scriptures until he sees human bones floating in the creek. Frank tries to save as many as he can, but he finds there are too many to collect, realizing there is something very strange with the Parker family. Since Bauer can't get through on his phone, he heads to the station to see Anders. He's dismayed to hear from the secretary that the deputy hasn't arrived yet, after asking for Meek and finding out he was out on a call.
Listen, hon, would you mind?
Bauer enters the sheriff's office, claims he left something behind, takes the officer's gun out of the drawer, and leaves his dog with the secretary. Bauer leaves town to look for Anders among the attendees at the event. Meanwhile, back at the Parker home, Frank gets ready for dinner in his suit, says a lengthy prayer, and goes to his kids' room to let them know it's ready. While pouring the stew into a bowl, Frank hears the sound of Anders' phone call and notices the message that Bauer left, alerting the deputy to his concerns about the Parkers and stating that he was headed to their home. Knowing that their secret will soon be revealed, Frank adds arson to the stew with plans to take his own and his family's lives. While bringing the bread to the table, Rose notices the jar of poison and realizes what their father is planning for them. After their prayer, Rory reaches for a spoonful of stew, but Rose smacks it out of his hand. Before her father could respond, they heard a knock at the front door and discovered the visiting doctor. Bauer advises Frank that his situation is fragile, so Frank has his kids go upstairs. Once they're alone, Bauer explains that Frank's wife suffered from a disease that comes from eating human flesh and raises his gun at him when he attempts to get up from his seat. Bauer then goes on to confront Frank, pointing out to him that he has seen Iris sporting the same hairpiece as his daughter.
It's a gift to my girl.
After realizing he needs to swiftly get things under control, Frank tries to shoot Bauer, but Iris gets harmed in the process as she tries to save the elderly man. As Bauer tries to assist Iris, Frank approaches him secretly and strikes him in the head with a pan. As soon as they hear gunfire, Rose grabs her younger brother and heads over to Marge's house.
What the fuck?
Soon after, Frank arrives at the house, attacking Marge and murdering her before convincing his children to return to the house. After that, he attempts to encourage his kids to eat the food by serving it to them. However, before he could make them, he was attacked by Rose and Iris, who tore him apart with their jaws and devoured him. After they had murdered their father, the two girls took their little brother and left the town, hoping to begin a new life free from the terrible experiences they had gone through. Thanks for watching, and remember to turn on your notifications to watch more movie recaps like this one.